Welcome to the Right on Purpose podcast, where we empower aspiring authors in the second half of their lives to discover the joy and fulfillment of crafting their legacy through the written word. Join me, Brad Swift, a seasoned Right on Purpose coach, as I share insights, strategies, and inspirational stories to guide you on your journey of self-discovery and creative expression. You can learn more about Right on Purpose coaching at wbradfordswift.com/coach. Now here's today's show. Today's podcast is sponsored by Porpoise Publishing, which in truth is my own publishing imprint. It's my way to shamelessly plug my forthcoming book, Right on Purpose, Authoring Your Legacy in the Second Half of Your Life. It's currently available on pre-order for 12 more days as of this posting, with some fantastic pre-order bonuses, if I do say so myself, including the opportunity to win one of 3 Right on Purpose coaching packages valued at $1,600. So go to wbradfordswift.com/WOP book to pre-order your copy today. Now, on with the podcast. Hello, everybody. This is Brad Swift, your Right on Purpose coach, and this is the Right on Purpose podcast. And it is my real pleasure today to introduce you to one of my Right on Purpose clients, somebody who's made some tremendous strides, and I take all the credit for that. No, just kidding. Sheila Lee Brown. She's a writer, she's an artist, and she's a generously curious person. And I find that to be very true, and it's a real attributes to have. In fact, coming out of the script for this moment, one of the number one things that living a life like Leonardo da Vinci, another pretty amazing creator, was being curious. So I think it's great that you're a curious person. Sheila was born and raised in South Carolina, where she spent her childhood playing outdoors in the surrounding woods and making up stories with her 3 siblings. She enjoys writing, reading, drawing silly cartoons, and always learning and growing. So Sheila, welcome to the Right on Purpose podcast.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here.
Thrilled to have you as well and explore some things. One of the things that really is, let me just first say, most podcasters, many podcasters, you know, we love interviewing famous best-selling authors. But I think it's also very important, maybe at least equally important, to talk with up-and-coming authors. And I know better place to start than with my own Right on Purpose clients, like, you know, Sheila herself. So as we jump into this, one of the things that I find is really unique about Sheila as a Right on Purpose client is that when she came to me, she was already a published author. And, you know, I would say that in the process of becoming published, she caught the creativity bug so much that what she wanted to work on with me as her coach was making a transition to becoming a full-time creative with an emphasis on writing. Would you say that's pretty accurate, Sheila?
Yes, that is definitely accurate. It's always been there for me. I just wasn't sure how to do it.
Right.
Or I haven't been successful in doing it in the past.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Now, one of the things that I'm going to want to refer to here is kind of to frame this conversation. This podcast may be out before or after the publication of my next book, Right on Purpose, Authoring Your Legacy in the Second Half of Your Life. And the framework of that book, and therefore the framework of this conversation, is the hero's journey. I take the case that every author, really every creator, is on their own hero's journey. And so one of the things that Joseph Campbell talks about as he was articulating this whole notion of a hero's journey is heading out, heeding the call to adventure. And so you have definitely heeded the call to adventure in making some major life changes to pursue your writing. So let me ask you, what was or was there a pivotal moment that made you decide to leave your former career to pursue being a creative with an emphasis on writing?
Yeah, so it was surprising, actually, what the way it happened. I knew it was a lifestyle that I wanted to have, but my previous job, a lot was tied up with it. Where we lived, we had a house that went with the job, so I was really hesitant to leave all that and have to figure it all out. And I definitely didn't want to cause any issues of making some upheaval for my husband as well. So it just became so strong that even life was pushing me towards it. It came from my husband. He was like, why don't you do this? He was so willing, and I'm very grateful for that. Once that was out of the way, I had no excuses. I had to start riding the wave. Just had to go.
Yeah, yeah. It's so great to have a supportive spouse like that, or surround yourself with supportive people that really want you to be successful in pursuing your dreams. Because as we know, not everybody's like that. There are a lot of
Exactly.
people that will question you and say, well, yeah, but what are you going to do for your real job, in the meantime, and things like. So
Yes.
have you heard any of that from anybody?
Maybe here and there.
Here and
A
there.
lot.
Right, right. And there's the inner game as well as the outer game. The inner game where you have to kind of do battle with your own fear and self-doubt. So how did you work through that fear and self-doubt that came with making such a big life transition?
Well, I do want to go back a little bit before even deciding that. So
Yes.
I knew I could not do it on my own because I've been trying for a really long time. And I was also making the observation that a lot of successful people have coaches. So I have done a lot of self-development work, as you know, most people who are in my age range probably hopefully have. But I think
Really
it was
have, yes.
getting,
I
yeah,
would
it
put
was
in
getting
hopefully.
a writing coach, and I have to give you props for this. And I'm very appreciative because having someone outside of me to start helping me work through it and see what I couldn't see was one of the biggest game changers, because then it wasn't just me thinking, oh, am I just making this up? I don't know what to figure out. I had somebody to give me some feedback to make sure I was using my guidance system, my inner guidance system properly.
Yes. Yeah, very good. Yeah, and for those who aren't familiar with my background, I was a small animal veterinarian for the first, you could say, the first half of my life. I sold my practice, I think it was around 40. So maybe not the full half of my life because I plan to live to at least 115. But um, but I often share about how much I feel honored and privileged to live a combo career as a writer slash author and personal development coach itself. So that's a very creative lifestyle, and there are no guarantees, that it's going
Mm-hmm.
to work out, as we all know. So you know, and you've kind of pointed to this, and uh, I'm a little nervous actually sharing this question because I don't want to pose it like a opportunity for you to brag about Right on Purpose coaching. But what role would you say that having a Right on Purpose coach has played in making such a bold move? What kind of work did we do that really supported that?
Yeah. So having Hmm. Yeah, I'm just trying to think how to really boil it down succinctly, but it definitely bolstered my confidence. I I know I know what I'm capable of, but some because it has taken me so long to, I did publish a book. but we all know if you publish a book, you're like a little fish in a big sea. So
Yeah.
it was really hard not becoming immediately successful and then thinking, well, maybe that means it's not meant to be. Well, that's not necessarily the end of the road.
Right.
It's actually the beginning of the road.
Exactly.
And so in our conversations, it's just kind of made me realize why maybe what was happening inside of me that made me give up so easily.
Yeah. 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 Very good. And that kind of leads us to the other piece of the puzzle. You know, one of the things that we work on, and I've been continuing to be developing through the years, is this kind of set of distinctions of talking about that we have a inner hero and also a inner villain, and that these two entities, these two ways of being, kind of are at battle with each other from time to time. So how would you say that the having the inner hero and inner villain framework has kind of impacted this writing journey of yours?
Yeah, so identifying the villain made it very obvious to me when I have a great idea of something to do that would probably take me further along my path. And there would be these excuses or reasons to not do it. And in the past, that totally would have worked. Of course, my villain is one that wants to keep me from showing up because I don't want people to be mean to me. And I don't want, and that's just the reality of the world. Some people will like what you do and some people won't like it. And I wanted this so bad that I realized I've lived through things that if I could do that, then I definitely can take some meanness from people in the world.
Yeah.
I'm a nice person. If they're really mean, what does that say about them?
Yeah,
I mean,
what to say about them. So I just want to make note here, somebody's got the inner villain is, about the fear of showing up because people will be mean to her. Showing up on a, podcast is going out internationally. It's going to be on Spotify. It's going to be on Apple Podcast. It's going to be on YouTube, Substack. It's going to be all out there in the world. And here she is confronting that and not being stopped by that inner villain. So what's the inner hero that calls to you?
I have always wanted to be a writer. I have a love of stories, a love of reading, and I love what you can learn from it. It's like being able to experience other lives without having to live them. And I have these ideas, and they're so fun. And the fact that I can create something. I remember writing a story when I was very young, I think maybe in junior high, and I had the intent to make my sister cry in a good way. It was like a moving story.
Right.
And she read it and she did. She cried, and I was like, wow, this is a way to touch people. It's a way to even have positive change or, share something that maybe they wouldn't get in their normal life, but they could read this book and get it. And that calls to me. That's magic.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is. It really is. And in the face of that, again, you get some hints, early on in your life that you could impact a person's life. You could actually, bring tears to their eyes out of the words that you've connected together. It is magical when you think about it. They're just words, and you connect them in a certain way, and it has people laugh. You connect them in another way, it has them cry. Another way, they get excited. Another way, they get depressed. Wow, the power of our words and the power of language itself is really pretty amazing. And to be a creative, there are, again, as Joseph Campbell often spoke about, was the road of trials. The challenges that faced when you're on an authorial journey, and a journey of being a creative. some of the common obstacles, the self-doubt. There's some, financial hurdles sometimes you have to deal with. Practical things of like time management. How do you balance your
Mhm.
creative life with your husband, for your example? So what would you say have been some of the biggest challenges so far that you faced in pursuing your life as a creative and as a writer?
Yes. So when I decided to leave my most recent job, I had to find a new place to live because, as I said, my home where I was living was a part of that. So it was huge. And my husband and I had already decided to move to a different state to be closer to my family, South Carolina. And so it was a big deal. Yeah, we had to find a place to stay. I had to, coordinate some things with where I was, while still doing my job because I gave a couple of months notice before I left just to make sure I could tie up a lot of things that I was working on at that job. And I was a little concerned. You always want to do things or be successful super fast, but I went into this. This one thing I love about being older and going into this is I have all my past experience to draw on. I have lots of evidence that one, it could happen fast. I welcome anything that happens quickly, but I know if I keep taking the steps every single day, I have that past. I know something great's going to happen. So everything really magically started coming together. I had a house show up for sale that it was an amazing price, great location, time management. This is something I actually discussed with you. I really love the Pomodoro method, and I've incorporated that because I don't just write. I have other things, so I want to make sure I get everything done. And honestly, it's an ongoing process. I keep trying, like something works, and then maybe I have to review it, and I don't expect that to ever end. I think it's always going to be a trying and moving forward and shifting as things need to shift. And that's kind of the fun of it,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, let's dig a little bit deeper into a couple of those things. So, as you pointed out, when you commit, there's some great quotes out there about it, and I don't have them in front of me, but one kind of goes with, when you truly commit, the universe responds in a positive fashion. It starts to help you kind of pave the way.
Mm-hmm.
And so you committed to this life and to make this transition from a very good, secure position, great job, even included a house, which was, again,
Mm-hmm.
not, a lot of people say, wow, and you gave that up? But then the universe responded with this other house in the location you wanted to move to at, like you said, we won't go into specific numbers, that's not important, but at a great price. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, I think your appraisal came in uh, substantially above what you actually paid for it.
That's right.
And then you had people show up to help you with the move and all that. So that's noteworthy. I think it's really a good sign when the universe responds that way. It kind of says, I think I am on the right path.
I
And then,
agree.
yeah, yeah. Anything else you want to say about that, since you actually have been living that?
Yeah, well, and there've been up. My husband had emergency surgery, so it wasn't just all smooth sailing. But I have felt so confident every step of the way that even that turned into something positive because we were able to take care of something that could have been a bigger. Uh, he ended up not being able to help much with the move, but I think about if he had help with the move, would it have made that situation worse?
Yeah.
So even the stuff that seems not great have turned out to be really great. So yeah, I'm kind of in that magical stream right now, and I hope it keeps going.
Yeah, and the other piece about that is it's not it's part of that, what has you be in that magical stream is your approach to it. So something happens that looks like it can be a real problem, and rather than dealing with it and looking at like, oh man, this is terrible, this is hard, and spending a lot of time, woeing and whining about it. Instead, you say, okay, how can we make the most of this? So again, this is where the whole area of personal development and that inner work that you've done through the years pays off, because you can deal with the circumstances much more effectively when you don't get caught up into the conversation of that inner villain that we were talking about before. And then on
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
practical side, yeah, excuse me. And then on the practical side, I want to, there probably still some people out there that be listening to this podcast who's like, Pomodoro technique? What the world is that? So can we just take a moment and share about that? I wish I could rename it the Swift technique, but because it's so great, but I didn't come up with it. I don't even know if there's a guy Pomodoro who came up with it, but what is that?
Yeah, so yeah, I may start call because I get the same thing. Even my mom was like, "What's a pomodoro?" Um, but it's the tomato. It's like I think that's like whatever the language was. It means tomato, and you had a tomato clock. So basically, it's sectioning up your day. But I don't know if I can explain this very well. So how I do it is, so for an hour, I will work on a project for 45 minutes, and then I'll take a 15-minute break. And then I have a long break in the middle of the day, which gives me a little more freedom to walk my dog or play with my dog a little bit longer and have lunch and errands if I need to. And then I do a total of 8 during the day. So it gives me 8 opportunities to kind of switch through different projects, or even do the same project for multiple Pomodoros. But overall, it's just a really nice way. I can actually set up my schedule according to that. And it makes me feel confident that I'm moving the things forward that I need to move. Because otherwise, I'm easily distracted. And there are lots of fun things to do that I would probably start doing.
Yeah, yeah, very good. So it's a great way of managing your time, for one thing, kind of
Yes.
arranging your time that way. But it's also scientifically been proven that
Mm.
the mind works better when you can take breaks after. I think the stretch for most people is like 90 minutes, the longest you want to go before you take a substantial break. Whether it's, I like the 40-20. I work concentrated 40 minutes, then take a 20-minute break. My dog loves it because he gets a lot of exercise that way, but my mind really loves it. And again,
Yes.
that little between the ears and in our art, that's our major resources as creatives. So you want to take care of that as well. So I appreciate you bringing that up so we could talk about it a little bit. The other thing I want to ask you about, in what ways do you see yourself on a hero's journey as a writer?
Hmm. Yeah, so I, I feel like when it's like when one journey ends, another one begins.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I've gone through the leg of the journey where I've met my guide. I've, I've had that overcoming a big hurdle of the job I was in and how it was taking up my time and my brain space and everything else, and being able to step away into an optimal situation to be what I want to be. So it's almost like I've gone through a certain leg of the journey. It's like the end of the first book in a series. So now I'm in the next part. And this one's a little bit different because it's managing a lot of things. And I think the goal of this part of the story is getting everything to a point where I never have to imagine going back to anything else.
Mm. Yeah.
So for me, and I mean, that's what the hero's journey is. It's a goal, right? You're searching for something and you're probably going to this and you have a million side quests. And I definitely have some of those with some of my other creative things. But I keep feeling called.
Yeah.
in this direction. So I'm going to keep following it.
Very good.
The villain doesn't show up quite as much. The old villain doesn't. And maybe the villain now really is trying to make sure I'm prioritizing the right things. But I almost feel like looking at it as far as what's right and wrong may not be the best way to look at it.
Yeah.
I think there's a natural guidance that starts to show up, and yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, one of the ways we talk about it, we'll talk about it in some of our coaching sessions, is initially the villain shows up as this, a bad thing you want to get rid of, you push it away, but you resist it, doesn't go away. And over time, you can actually have it become a part, an ally in your journey together. And the analogy I often use is, commercial airplane, on autopilot is off course most of the time. It's
right.
only a little bit off course, but once it turns on autopilot kind of goes, you're off course too far to the north, adjust, then you're on course, then you're off course. Well, the inner villain can kind of be like that. If you're feeling that fear, lack, and struggle, probably indicating that where you're pushing, where you're going next is the direction to go. And it's just letting you know that it's trying to keep you safe and secure. That's what the primary purpose of the inner villain is. But in the process of keeping you safe and secure, it also keeps you small and playing too safe. And so pushing against that comfort zone and feeling the effects of that fear and doubt is part of the game, is a part of, yes, I'm going in the right direction to live a full and fulfilling life itself. So as we kind of come to the end of our time here, I'd like to ask you, what advice would you give others who are considering, those who might be, as I often say, they've been in that place where they're, been thinking about someday I'd like to write a book, but never quite knowing how to get started. What advice would you give them?
So one thing would be open to learning. I find a lot of times when I felt I couldn't do something, it was because I didn't have enough information. So if you can be curious enough and understand, we live in a magical time where you can find information everywhere. You don't know how to write a book. There are books about that. It's not, you don't have to, just be born and magically you're a writer from, a baby where you're not even, know how to speak yet. We grow towards these things, and just like most jobs, sometimes there's usually always something to be learned. And some people naturally are better at that at the beginning. But I know so many people, just by putting the work in, they've become brilliant at things that they struggled with to begin with, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think curiosity and learning and just believing yourself. And if you can find someone else to believe in you when you're having those moments of insecurity, that's even better. Just support systems are the best.
Perfect. Very good. Yeah, and to put in a little bit of a shameless plug there, one such book, right on purpose. I'm showing it if on video itself. Will be coming out on June 19th. It's available for pre-order. There's actually some pretty amazing bonuses if you pre-order or you purchase it in the launch phase, including an $800 coaching package with me. So you can get a combination of the learning and the support that you need as well. And where can people find out more about the work that you're doing, Sheila?
Yes, if you go to SheilaLeeBrown.com, that has it's kind of a central area to find out anything about me. And I just wanted to add, that sounded like an amazing deal. And I want to give you props because as a coach, in all your years of experience of a life coach, intertwined with the writing is amazing. I really don't think I would have had the confidence, but you've helped me work through all kinds of mazes and puzzles and in my mind, and I'm grateful for that.
Well, thank you. It really has been a joy. I love working with you and my other Right on Purpose coaches. All the types of coaching I've done, this has been some of the most satisfying over 35 years, and I look forward to doing it for another 35 years, God willing. So that's it for today, folks. This is the Right on Purpose podcast. This is your coach, Right on Purpose coach, Brad Swift, signing so long, except for keep writing and staying on purpose. Take care.